My cousin and I had always loved exploring the wilderness. A few years ago, we planned a weekend camping trip in the middle of nowhere, a remote forest that promised isolation and stunning views. It was supposed to be a getaway from the chaos of our lives, but what we experienced was something I'll never forget. The drive out was uneventful. We arrived at the campsite just before sunset, set up our tent, and got a fire going. The first night was peaceful. The stars above were breathtaking, and the only sounds were crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. We sat by the fire, trading stories and laughing, before eventually crawling into our sleeping bags. The second day started out normal. We hiked for miles, following trails that seemed barely used. The deeper we went, the quieter the forest became. By mid-afternoon, there was no birdsong, no rustling animals, just an eerie, oppressive silence. I joked about how it felt like we were the last people on Earth, but my cousin didn't laugh. He just muttered, "It feels like we're being watched." I brushed it off, but I couldn't shake the feeling either. As the sun began to set, we made our way back to camp. The forest seemed darker than it should have been, the shadows stretching and shifting unnaturally. When we finally arrived, we found the fire pit cold and the tent zipped up just as we'd left it. We tried to focus on normal tasks, lighting a fire, cooking dinner, but neither of us could shake the tension in the air. Then, we heard the first sound. It was faint, almost like a whisper, carried on the wind. We froze, straining to listen. It came again, closer this time, a low, guttural growl that sent chills down my spine. My cousin grabbed a flashlight, shining it into the trees, but the beam barely penetrated the darkness. "Probably just an animal," I said, trying to convince myself as much as him. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The growl turned into a steady rhythm of heavy footsteps. They echoed around us, coming from every direction but always staying just beyond the firelight. "What the hell is that?" my cousin whispered, clutching the hatchet we'd brought for chopping wood. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped, and the forest went silent again. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, making your heart pound louder. Then, a different sound, a sharp crack, like a tree snapping in half, echoed through the woods. This time, it was close. Too close. My cousin swore under his breath and whispered, "We need to get inside the tent." We scrambled into the tent, zipping it shut as if the thin fabric could protect us. Inside, we sat in silence, listening. The footsteps resumed, slow and deliberate, circling the campsite. Every step made the ground vibrate slightly. My cousin held the hatchet tightly, his knuckles white. I held my breath, trying to stay as still as possible. Then came the voice. It was faint at first, like someone murmuring in a language I couldn't understand. It grew louder, more guttural, until it was all around us. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was something else entirely. The sound vibrated through the air, through the tent, through us. My chest felt tight, and my ears rang with each syllable. I wanted to look out, to see what was making the noise, but fear kept me frozen. My cousin finally whispered, "Don't look. Whatever it is, don't look." And then, everything stopped. Silence. No footsteps, no growls, no whispers. Just the faint crackle of the dying fire outside. We sat there for what felt like hours, too afraid to move, too afraid to sleep. At some point, exhaustion overtook us both. We woke up to daylight streaming through the tent. Everything was eerily normal. The fire was out, the food was untouched, and there were no signs of any disturbance. But the strangest thing? Both our phones, fully charged the day before, were dead. Completely drained. We packed up quickly, barely speaking, and left as fast as we could. On the drive home, we tried to make sense of what had happened, but no explanation seemed right. Whatever we encountered in those woods wasn't natural. It wasn't something we could explain, or something we wanted to. To this day, neither of us has gone camping again. And every so often, when the night is quiet and the air feels heavy, I swear I can still hear that voice.